And we are back, and I have on the phone with me, again, the Director of the Office for Evangelization, Martha Fernández-Sardina. And we're going to be talking about a number of things. The Month of Prayer for Religious Freedom, the Fortnight for Freedom, our first and most cherished liberties. Martha, are you there with us? Are you by chance there, Martha? Do I have you?
I am here.
Okay,
Good
great.
morning,
Finally. Woo! I was sweating my forehead off, and I'm glad I got you because there's some wonderful things going on right now in the Archdiocese regarding this Fortnight for Freedom and Month of Prayer. Could you fill us in on what's going on?
Well, you know, or may not know, the listeners may not know, that the bishops of the United States published on April 12th of this year, 2012, a document titled Our First Most Cherished Liberty, a statement on religious liberty. It came from the Ad Hoc Committee on Religious Freedom of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. And in that document, they point out a number of erosions to religious liberty and freedom of conscience over the years in our country, and of course, it also happens outside of the U.S. And in the document, they also call for a fortnight for freedom, fortnight meaning 14 days of prayer, study, catechesis, and action from June 22nd through July 4th, which we celebrate Independence Day on the 4th of July. And Archbishop Gustavo and Bishop Cantu, in response to their brother bishops and their own call to this fortnight for freedom, Archbishop Gustavo decided, let's make it a whole month of prayer for religious freedom. Again, prayer, catechesis, study, and action. And so we've designed a calendar of events, and it was launched on June 1st, this month of prayer. So this past weekend, we encouraged whoever wanted to go to the movies this weekend to watch the movie For Greater Glory, which depicts the true story of the martyrdom of a large number of men and women who gave their lives in defense for religious freedom and for the faith. And also at the cathedral, the Archbishop celebrated the 8 a.m. Mass, and after all Masses at the cathedral, I went to one of those Masses, we venerated after every Mass the relics of 6 of those Mexican martyrs, which were 6 priests who were also members of the Knights of Columbus. They were Knights of Columbus. And so we venerated their relics. And so the month has begun with prayer, with reflecting on the price that is to be paid sometimes for freedom of religion and for the faith. And then we will continue to look at what is going on in our country. We're encouraging people to read that document that the bishops put out, Our First Most Cherished Liberty. We're encouraging individuals to join us for various events. And all of these, Richard, are on this calendar that we have put on a new website that the Archdiocese created, and that is archsa.org/freedom of religion. In fact, if you just go to our main page, archsa.org, you will find numerous buttons that you can click on, especially the one on the upper right-hand corner. And as we go, as we converse, you and I, Richard, I can highlight some of the other events. We're going to be joining Catholic Life Insurance for their Flag Day, which is on Thursday, June 14th. There will be Mass and the raising of the flag and hot dogs and ice cream social. Archbishop will put out another column on religious freedom and a new letter by him and Bishop Cantu. There'll be an interfaith gathering on Tuesday, June 26th. And myself and Bishop Cantu address this topic on my television program, Prepare the Way, which airs on Catholic Television in San Antonio 3 times a week. And all the details are on that calendar.
Excellent. That's a very, very wonderful calendar. I mean, I'm looking at a copy of it right now. It just has a lot of information. Again, can the calendar be downloaded from the website as well?
Yes. People can click on that main page, archsa.org, go to the upper right-hand corner where it says Fortnight for Freedom. And when you click on that, it'll take you to the web page, Freedom of Religion. And right there on that page, there are lots of sections, one of which is the calendar. You click on it, and you can print it. In fact, I encourage people to click on it, print it, share it, email it, Facebook it, tweet it, blog it, hand it out, carry it with you, and be sure to really carry it with you so that you yourself as an individual can keep up with the various things that are going on. On that website, archsa.org/freedom of religion, there is a prayer in English and in Spanish, which the bishops of the United States have put together and posted on their website, usccb.org. It's a prayer for God's grace to maintain vigilance toward the erosions against religious liberty. And that's what's at stake here. In that document, Our First Most Cherished Liberty, a statement on religious liberty, the bishops open the document, Richard, with these words: "We are Catholics, we are Americans. We are proud to be both, grateful for the gift of faith, which is ours as Christian disciples, and grateful for the gift of liberty, which is ours as American citizens." And then you go on to say, to be Catholic and American should mean not having to choose one over the other. In other words, we should be able to be, as we always have been, both Catholic and American without any problem. They go on to say, our allegiances are distinct, but they need not be contradictory, and they should instead be complementary. In other words, we should be able to be at all times American and Catholic with no contradiction, but rather complementing. They continue, that is the teaching of our Catholic faith, which obliges us to work together with our fellow citizens for the common good of all who live in this land. That's the vision of our founding and our Constitution, and guarantees citizens of all religious faiths the right to contribute to our common life together. And then here's the point that they're making. Freedom is not only for Americans, but we think of it as something special, of our special inheritance, fought for at a great price, and a heritage to be guarded now. We are, they say, the bishops, the stewards of this gift, not only for ourselves, but for all nations and peoples who yearn to be free. Catholics in America have discharged this duty of guarding freedom admirably for many centuries. And then they go on to say, why is it that we feel now the call, the duty, and the right to defend religious liberty in this nation? And they go on to point out that there have been erosions to this religious liberty and freedom of conscience over the years. A number of things have been happening that maybe you and I and many others have not been aware of, or have been aware of but have not stood up to say, wait, what's going on here? The latest of which, of course, and that's why the bishops have published the document and have called for the Fortnight for Freedom, and we in the Archdiocese for a month of prayer for religious freedom. The latest of these intrusions to religious freedom and freedom of conscience is the so-called HHS mandate. That's the mandate that the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, has put forth as part of the health care bill, known as Obamacare, in which all insurance coverages were mandated to include contraceptives, sterilization, and abortion-inducing drugs. And the bishops are saying the Catholic Church cannot, in conscience, provide these services. And then there's the whole debate of, well, did the government put forward an accommodation or an exemption? The bishops are saying the so-called accommodation or exemption is insufficient because it really applies only to very strict and narrow guidelines that they provide, including whether or not your institution, your Catholic school, Catholic parish, Catholic hospital, diocese, whatever it may be, whether or not you serve primarily or solely Catholics. And you do know that we serve everybody. We don't serve people just because they're Catholic. We serve them because we are. So that's what's going on, and that's what the bishops are drawing our attention to and inviting us as faithful Catholics and faithful citizens to pray and stand up for the religious liberty that is being eroded and not properly preserved.
Yes, and providing these kinds of services, which are direct in contradiction to our Catholic faith, violates the moral law, the divine law, natural law, and even in the Catechism, it's referenced, is it not?
It is. And sometimes this is important that we point this out because sometimes people don't understand that first and foremost we must, as believers, and this would be true even non-Catholic Christian believers and even believers of other religions, if you believe in God, you believe that God has the first and the last say. There is such a thing as a divine law, and therefrom derives the moral law. And in fact, we believe in natural law, which is that law that God has imprinted in the heart of every human being, by which you intuit that there is something right and something wrong. For example, most societies across the centuries know that to kill another person, unless it's in self-defense or by accident, those things, that to kill another person, the taking of another human life, there's something intrinsically wrong with that. And that's the natural law that is written in our hearts. And so we need to respond first and foremost to the divine law. And that's why sometimes in societies, including our own, when a civil law is passed that is unjust, because it goes contrary to the moral law, to natural law, to the divine law, we must oppose the unjust law. And we've seen that, for example, even in this nation, when there were laws that prohibited, for example, women or black persons from voting or having equal rights in society. Those were unjust laws, and we opposed them. And the Catholic Church has always been on the forefront, in the front lines of defending legitimate rights and the rights of all human beings.
That's amazing. And we do need to continue to bring more light, and I thank you for everything you're doing for getting the word out and getting people to understand this isn't just something about contraception and something about abortifacients, and it's about religious freedom.
That's right, Richard. This is actually about religious liberty and religious freedom and about freedom of conscience. And though surely the bishops and we with our bishops, who are the authentic teachers of the faith, the guardians of the faith, though we are opposing any mandate that would force institutions, Catholic institutions, to provide abortifacients and abortion-inducing drugs, sterilizations, contraceptives, things that go against the law of the Church and the law of God. This is actually a broader issue, as the bishops have so rightly pointed out. And I want to direct people's attention to the website again, because in that new webpage that we've developed, you'll find links to papal documents, statements by various bishops, including Archbishop Gustavo and Bishop Cantu, the actual document, Our First Most Cherished Liberty by the USCCB. You'll find stories of saints and martyrs who have paid the high price with their life, with their own blood, for religious freedom. You will find the calendar itself. So you will find a lot of things and a link to a very important document, Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship. And again, all of that you can find at our Archdiocesan website, archsa.org, and the special page dedicated to religious freedom, which is archsa.org/freedom of religion. On the issue of conscience, Richard, the Catechism is very clear on that conscience is that inner sanctuary where God speaks to us and imprints His law. Conscience is not doing what Martha thinks she should be doing on a given day or on a weekend because she likes it. No, conscience needs to be formed, and that's why the bishops speak of forming consciences for faithful citizenship, so we might know how to engage in the public square, so that we might know how to bring our Catholic values and our Catholic worldview and divine law to the public square, to voting, to engagement, to all of the things that that are involved in being a faithful citizen. Which, by the way, this fight that's being fought is not just the United States bishops, but there are a large number, I think 34 or 40, I think it's past 40 now, Catholic organizations, apostolates, ministries, and so forth, that have filed lawsuits because the mandate is being deemed unconstitutional, and the desire and the goal of our prayer study, Catechesis in Action, is that the HHS mandate be rescinded, that it be stricken down, and that this be changed. Not so that people have access to health care. That we would like, but this is not the way to go about it.
Right, and then tying in with I guess you could say the perfect timing for the movie For Greater Glory, and I think you've seen it. Have you seen it by chance, Martha?
I have. I've seen it twice, and it's a very moving story, not only because of the struggle for religious freedom, and that is, of course, the theme, but it weaves the story with some very strong characters. It's a beautiful story, especially that 14-year-old who is a blessed Sanchez. That is a moving story. Then there's the story of the love of a man for his wife and his children, and how he undergoes a conversion and his desire to defend religious freedom, even when he's not totally well with the church, but he gets well. He gets in the right place. There's the role of the women supporting the men, and the men fighting for their own families and their country. There's a lot of very well little subplots within the larger plot, and as a cinematographic, as a movie, it's a very well done movie with some very well known actors like Andy Garcia, Eva Longoria, Peter O'Toole, and so forth. So I highly recommend it.
I was going to say, you give it a thumbs up, huh?
I say yes. In fact, I've seen it twice. I intend to see it another time.
Yes.
You know what? Also, I would want to direct people's attention to a documentary, a half-hour documentary on For Greater Glory, the true story of the Cristeros. And this, of course, are the Mexicans who fought for religious freedom in the 1920s. That half-hour documentary includes some of the actors of the movie, as well as Archbishop Gomez and Bishop Plácido Dominguez, the Bishop of Lubbock, who speaks of his father having, in his own home, his father and mother, having safeguarded and protected bishops and priests. And it's very moving, and people can find that at EWTN's website, or also look it up, For Greater Glory, the True Story of Cristeros on YouTube. They can watch that half-hour documentary.
And I have to totally agree with you on everything you said about the movie. I've seen it twice, been blessed to see it twice, and wow, very impactful, just very moving, and I love the way they did the movie. So if you've seen it, tell your friends, like Martha said earlier, put it on Facebook, tweet, get the word out, communicate to everybody you know about it. Let's get those numbers for the movie. I forget where it ranked this past weekend, but the more people that go see it in the first couple of weekends, the bigger impact. Yes, definitely.
And all the places in San Antonio where there's 10 theaters that are showing it, and you can find all those also on our website, archsa.org/freedom of religion. Richard, the Pope, Benedict XVI, is quoted in the document by the bishops, Our First Most Cherished Liberty, and I do want to mention this before we wrap it up. He speaks of the fact that he has noticed that there are attempts to limit religious freedom around the world, and he says, here once more we see the need for an engaged, articulate, and well-formed Catholic laity endowed with a strong critical sense vis-a-vis the dominant culture and with the courage to counter a reductive secularism which would delegitimize the Church's participation in public debate about the issues which are determining the future of American society. So, brothers and sisters, we as lay men and women need to be engaged, articulate, and well-formed according to the Church's teaching so that we might have a strong critical sense for what's going on in the dominant culture. And he says, and this is something we have to pray for, the courage to counter the secularism which is trying to delegitimize the Church's participation. In other words, telling us, shh, 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 don't say anything. And we will not be pushed into a corner because that is what disciples do. We speak the truth with courage, with love, with conviction, with clarity.
Excellent. You said it very, very well. Again, Martha, if somebody wanted to find out more information about your Office for Evangelization, on the Archdiocesan website as well?
Yes, you can go to archsa.org/evangelization or my blog, which I keep up more regularly on the website, ievangelize.wordpress.com. And again, I want to draw people's attention to the television interview this week with Bishop Cantu, which aired this morning, will air again on Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. on Catholic Television of San Antonio, and on Friday at 9:30 p.m. And Bishop Oscar Cantu and I speak about this very issue of religious liberty in our nation and the formation of conscience. We also want to draw people again to the calendar events so that you don't miss any of those events. We will close the 34-day of month of prayer. It's a 34-day, not a 30-day. We will close with the ringing of bells, Let Religious Freedom Ring, a prayer event in all parishes, or very many parishes across the Archdiocese, and that will be the weekend of July 1st.
Very, very, very exciting. Again, Martha, thank you so much. You're a wealth of knowledge. I love getting you on the air and sharing with everything you've got in your head and what's going on with all of our listeners out there. Keep up the great work there at the Office for Evangelization.
Thank you, brother. God bless you and all that you do.
Okay, God bless you. Thank you so much, Martha. And just like that, you heard what Martha had to say. We got the word out. Again, I encourage you, visit the Archdiocesan website. archsa.org. That's ARCHSA for the Archdiocese of San Antonio.org. Download all this wonderful information, the calendar that Martha was talking about, the different documents that Martha mentioned, and, put links to them on your Facebook page. Tweet them to your friends. Email them to your distribution list. Get the word out. Let's start talking more about it. Let's become well-formed and informed and well-formed and getting the word out there so we can, shed some light and bring our brothers and sisters who may not completely understand what this is all about, to a better understanding. So again, God bless you all for all the work that you do there with the Archdiocese and especially the Office for Evangelization.